The book is The Place of Law, and it was chosen, that title was chosen intentionally to focus attention on what law does in a society, what is its place in a society. And the subtitle of the book, which elaborates, is The Role and Limits of Law in Society. So the role of law and the limits of law in a society go to the place of law in a society. Well, law is supposed to do something for the social system. It exists to serve the social system, and I think you see that in the rules of professional responsibility. You see it it's a general philosophy that that lawyers are members of a larger setting, a larger group, and they're supposed to make a contribution to that group. Law does something for society. The question is what? I was particularly affected by an article that was submitted back in the 1980s to a demography journal that I had founded and that I was the editor of. It was a study of the impact of divorce law, especially Roe versus Wade, on the number of births in the United States. If the change in law that Roe versus Wade is thought to have did bring about, if law on abortion, restrictive law on abortion, was blocking a lot of women from having abortions, then following Roe versus Wade, there should have been a measurable, sustained decline in the number of births. The researcher and economist could find no effect. And I remember that study really impressed me. I remember the article, the submission, so well that I even remembered the referee to whom I sent the article for review. And it was published. It was published in 1984, I believe. And that began, I think, it forced me to think about what law did. I had assumed until that point that law was very effective in dealing with, in controlling human behavior. That study made me reflect on really what law did. Was it that tool, that effective tool for social engineering that my generation thought it was? Gradually I started to encounter other studies which challenged the assumption that I had made about law as a tool for social engineering. That led in turn to the book that I published in 1993, Social Construct, a Legal Construct, Social Concept. The Place of Law is a follow-up to that 1993 book. And it's also a testament to the continued progress, awesome progress, in the social sciences over the last quarter century. Over the last 30 years. The social sciences have developed data sets. They're using much better statistical techniques. The research that's coming out from the social sciences is far better than what it was when I got my PhD in 1965. As a former dean of the Harvard Law School wrote back in the 1980s, and I can quote this almost verbatim, what he said was approximately, "We ignore the social sciences at our peril, for their techniques grow steadily more refined," quote unquote. But it's more than just their techniques. It's also the data sets that they have available, and the quality of the research from the improved statistical techniques, because statistics is making progress too. it's become, the social sciences have reached a stage where they have become so powerful that the legal profession simply can no longer ignore them, which is why that Northwestern University and Washington University, the schools of law at those two universities, have for the past 6 or 7 years been offering 2.5-day seminars, workshops, on statistical techniques for law school faculty. At the last one, which was held at Northwestern in May, and which was attended by one of our faculty, I was told that there were some 70 attendees, law school faculty and librarians who had enrolled, and that's about 3 times what I would have expected. George Mason University this year started its own 2 or 3 day workshop on statistical techniques to train law school faculty in social science methodology, basically. It's coming, and it's going to, I think, as social science research becomes more prominent in law schools, and as social science research progresses, I think a lot of assumptions regarding law are going to be thrown into doubt. Certainly the questions I was asking in the place of law have, they were questions I would not have asked 25, 30 years ago. And it's, I have a very different image of law now than I did when I went to law school in 1973. Very different.
If there were one thing that you would particularly hope that a reader would take away from the book, what would that be?
That law is not a sealed system. It's tied to a larger context. That context is society. That context determines the concepts and doctrines of law. That society adapts, and law does not seem to have nearly the effect on society, on behavior that we believe it has. Certainly there's a lot more to be learned. Social science will, over the next 20 years, advance even more, and the conclusions that exist today should be viewed as tentative, even my conclusions, because we may have to jettison all or some of them as social science progresses. It's going to be a remarkable future.